you know, this was one that kind of had me just based on the sort of the number item, right? Like what is 162.1? And basically you said, hey, if you're spending money in your business, then you're that's a true statement, right? Did you want to elaborate on that at all?
Yeah, Brett actually might be able to weigh on this too, because I don't think it's just spending money. I think that you actually have to have, you know, you got to have an actual business activity there that's like generating revenue. And so,
yeah, I
Brett,
agree with that. It's got to be an active trader business. That's a
yeah,
critical component of the QOZB test.
So having bank statements that show in and out transfers,
correct.
right?
And so then accordingly as well, right, that you're filing and you're going to file taxes that show that you are an active trader business and that you've put property in service, right? So
I also want to right now just take a moment to let everybody know that I know that this is got like close to half an hour left, right? Hang tight, and we're gonna go down through the rest of this list. I want to touch on a couple of bootcamp members that have specific questions for a few minutes, but also Emily has teed up this raffle, so you have to be present to win this thing. But someone who's here is going to get all of these spreadsheets delivered and in a session with one of the strategists here. So I just want to say, like, hang tight, and that's part of the formula today. So do you want me to flip through these gross income safe harbor tests too, Ashley?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
we talked a little bit about them
sure.
when you were bringing up the sort of pop out of the cheat sheet.
Going back to, so Tom actually had a question about the lease that we've got inside of our QOZBP worksheet. He said discount for each month of the year or as of what date? And I think that your net present value discount would effectively be back to the date that you entered into the lease, because you wouldn't have it prior to that, and you're not going to have it in the future. And the cool thing is, Tom, is that it's going to stay static at whatever that amount is. So if you've got 360 lease payments and you've got numeric values attached to those. So in our case, we entered into a 1-year lease with 9 1-year extensions that all went up by like 1%, right? And so there's numeric values attached to every single one of those options. And so now we have 10. So we've got 120 lease payments that we dump into the Excel calculator, and we net present value back to the day that we entered into the lease. And so that number now becomes our value for purposes of leased property. That's going to go into our 70% good asset store at the QOZB level. And then that's also going to be reported on our 8996 for the QOZB as well, for the value of leased property in that column. And then that value is not going to change until that lease terminates.
So I mean, this is the genius of having people who really know what they're doing. Like, how do I dive into this, you know, if I'm just a beginner? And the answer is talking to these types of people and participating in this type of thing. So
I love Tom's questions, man. He's firing them away in here.
Yeah.
And so he's asking all at original cost. And so you got 2 valuation methods. You can either use applicable financial statements if they're audited and the business regularly relies upon them, which probably I don't know that anybody on this call is going to have that. Or you use the alternative valuation method, which is your, and Chris, stop sharing real fast because I'm going to show them on the 8996 what I'm talking about. So this is fairly important on the 8996, is that at the bottom of page 3, you've got this box that you have to check about the type of accounting method that you use to determine the value. And you're going to check the alternative valuation method unless you have audited financial statements. The other piece is that Tom was asking about, okay, I thought that the 8996 was only for the QOF. Well, technically it is only for the QOF, but the QOF has to report information about the QOZB. So technically the QOZB doesn't file anything, but it has to deliver up to the QOF the information that we talked about. So in this, you're going to have the census tract number, you're going to have the EIN of the qualified opportunity zone business, and then you're going to have the value of your investment as of the 6-month mark, and the value of your investment as of the 12-month mark. And typically that's going to be whatever amount you put into the deal, right? So if you dropped $1 million from your QOF to your QOZB, that's going to be $1 million. Then you're not going to proportion this out for the tangible property owned or leased. You're going to put what the QOZB itself owns for that particular census tract. So in our case, we've got one lease that we have, and it's in whatever census tract it is, which is like 985,624, whatever. And then we've got $79,000 here in the lease property value. And then it's going to be $79,000 here as well. Now, if we were to go into take out a lease in another census tract, we're going to list that here. So this would be like 652861. And then we would have, let's say that we did a shorter lease here. We only have $35,000 here, but you're going to report that per census tract inside of the QOZB that is either owning it or leasing it. And so that's where the information on the 8996 applies to the QOZB. All right, Chris, back to you, man. Let's go back to that spreadsheet.
Yeah, we're almost through the spreadsheet here. And then we're pretty much right on time. I'm loving it because we've been talking for a while, and I kind of want to touch on a couple of bootcamp members that I think have questions.
Man, let's get them. Yeah, let's get their questions involved, answered and that kind
of
thing.
Because and I don't know if they necessarily pertain exactly to these spreadsheets, but this is really getting into the details, and just having these documents again for me was just so much peace of mind, knowing that, all right, if I can't answer this line item, what do I need to do, and who do I need to talk to get that done, right?
So you're highlighting one of those on there, right? As less than 5% of the aggregate average of the aggregate unadjusted basis of the property of such business attributable to non-qualified financial property. So that's cash, stocks, bonds, that kind of thing. And so inside of that, that's where number one, the working capital safe harbor really comes in. So anything that's covered under that working capital safe harbor is not going to be counted towards that 5% test. And so the other piece of this, and this goes to Tom's question, is that is cash counted relative to your coming up with the value of stuff for the qualified opportunity zone business? And it's not if it's covered under a working capital safe harbor plan. And then I guess if you had a bunch of cash sitting, if you have a bunch of cash sitting on the books, then it's going to violate this test and you're screwed anyhow. So we don't need to worry about the other tests and whether it would factor into the 70% test or not.
Well, and this document is part of the package that you guys provide, the
right.
written plan.
Yep.
That's not the working capital safe harbor plan. It's another document, right? I think I can just open this one up. It's a written document, right? It's signed by everybody. So just something to kind of.
So this is a little bit different. So this is our old school one, because I think you roll through and you got it on a monthly basis by how we're going to spend the $22,000, which basically just got covered in burn, right? So it got burned and it got burned fast. The one that's probably a little bit more in depth, right? And that is effectively the attachment that goes to that written plan is right here. And so this is going to show over 31 months and then ultimately up to 62 months if you're a startup, right? Like how you're spending that money down. And so in the sources tab, you go through to here and you put in your $120,000, and then you put any additional equity infusions that you anticipate or debt infusions, because it can either be equity or debt that's coming in. And Matt, I can see you kind of like squinting there. If you will, if you double click my Hollywood square, it'll make me big, right? So that way you don't have to squint as bad. So then once you get to the working capital thing, you just need to make sure that in this spreadsheet, when you get out to month 31, right, that you are showing that you've burned it down for that tranche. And then for subsequent tranches that you've got it down to 0 for every subsequent tranche. Now, inside of this one, we've got it set up to where you can effectively put in like 2 additional infusions of capital. And what I would recommend is if you're doing this as kind of a budget, all right, try to back end your spending of money, right? close as possible to month 31. And then inside of your plan, if you can show that you're going to have a substantial infusion of capital in month 31, then you get 62 months to be inside of the plan, but you have to spend each tranche of capital inside of 31 months from the date that that capital comes in. And so this is what the working capital safe harbor plan looks like in Excel form.
And that's pretty cool if you're raising capital over a period of like 3 to 5 years. So it gives you that ability to just, keep spending, but, take your time if you have to. If you're getting all the money up front, it's not as helpful, but potentially depending on your fund and how your money's trickling in, it can give you, like you said, up to 5 years.
So what we did and how we did that in our deal, Brett, because we're doing this for Puerto Rico right now, is we did our original working capital safe harbor that shows where we're anticipating getting a load of capital. And, I don't know, I think it's like 5% of our aggregate raise in month 31, which gives us that 62-month window because we're a startup. And then what we're doing is every time.
That's a loose term though. What's a startup?
Yeah, exactly.
Spend a half hour on that.
Yeah, we could easy. Jay Darby was here. We'd spend 45 minutes, maybe an hour. So I love Jay Darby, and but we want to talk about arcane discussions. Inside of that, what we're doing every time we get a tranche of capital is that we're actually putting a plan in place for that tranche of capital that shows how we're spending it over the next 31 months. And I think best practices would be where you actually have like a budget and then you have the actual, but man, that gets to be really wonky on trying to keep track of that. And I don't think that, I just think that would be burdensome for everybody to try to do, when you're trying to basically do that on like a monthly basis or even 6-month basis.
Another thing to touch on is, a lot of people, their plans change, right? So that's what's kind of interesting about that working capital safe harbor is you have to come up with a plan. You're supposed to stick to the plan. You're supposed to back up the plan, but hey,
substantially comply with it. But everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Plans change. Plans
Right?
change. Yeah.
Plans change. And so inside of that, once again, right, then what you would just do. And so this is kind of the thing, and we've got a notes section down here on this, is that to the extent that it changes, click to the notes section and document like why it's changed and why you're entering into a new one. One of our forms as well is a contemporaneous memorandum, right? Of documenting like why you're doing something as you're doing it, because that then holds substantially more weight than if you try to go back through and do it from the back, right? In like hindsight being 2020. And so just write down why you're doing something, why you're taking the action that you're doing. And then that becomes part of your audit trail. So you can either do it in the spreadsheet here, or you can do it like kind of in your folder of stuff relative to amendments to the working capital plan if you need to change it.
Ashley, why don't we, we can still have time here. What I'd like to do is maybe you can talk a little bit about, the documents, how people get them, why and how you created them, all that. And then we have time at the end because I'd like to do this raffle thing. It's pretty fun. Emily's got like an actual like wheel that's going to spin. Yep. And yeah,
that's
so if
really
you can
fun.
talk, yeah, it's cool.
So
remember we did
participate?
We did it in Puerto Rico. I mean, if she put your name in there, that would be a real, kick in the pants.
Right? Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, if you want to just talk about it, because I mean, we saw them all, and you're the genius behind them. So if you want to talk about it and how people can, get access, and obviously, like my recommendation is to take what you even got today, marinate with it for a little bit. Definitely bring it to Bootcamp at the very least. But there's, like you said, there's a special offer. So if you want to just talk through how you created these documents, why, and how people can access them, that'd be great, man.
Yeah. So when we originally founded OZPros, we were trying to be the legal Zoom for opportunity zones. So we've got a document generation software that on our website, you literally filled out the form and then it put your information into that, and then it spits out the documents. The problem is that people didn't really understand what needed to go where into the form. right? About who needed to be the investor, what the percentages needed to be, and that kind of thing. And so we ended up spending more time trying to fix that stuff than if we had just done it from the outset, which is why we eliminated the do it yourself. And now we just do done for yous, right? It's like, all right, if you want us to do it, we'll do it. But there's still this, we still get requests for the documents all the time. And so what we're doing is we're coming back to that. We're going to be releasing these documents on our website where you can basically purchase the documents for, a fee. And then it comes with a video that explains how to do the document. And so you can buy them a la carte, and you will be able to buy them a la carte. So if you stack up all the documents that we have on an a la carte basis, and it's basically $500 a document, right? Plus the video. And then you can do with it what you want, right? You can fill it in and you can do all this your stuff yourself, right? And then if you want guidance with it, you could set a strategy call. You could come to the boot camp and we can help you get the document done. So if you add up all of the documents, and then a couple of the documents are more than $500, it's around 11 grand, right? On a la carte basis. Now, if you hire us to do them, we only charge 6, right? Because it's like, all right, it's a package, you're getting all of them, and it's just easier for us to just crank those out, right? But what we wanted to do is we wanted to make these available to folks in the boot camp. And so for a limited time, I think till literally close of business next Tuesday after the boot camp, if you sign up for an annual boot camp membership, which is $3,500, and which is usually $4,200 if you pay monthly, we're going to give you all the documents, right? So you get access to the documents, and that's the way that we can give folks, right? We want people participating in the boot camp, but we can't have people kind of coming in and out for $100, getting all the documents and that kind of drill. So if you sign up for an annual boot camp membership, you'll get access to all the documents, and that applies to existing boot camp members and new boot camp members as well. And so we're really excited about that because we want to be able to put these in your hands, but we're like, all right, how do we do that? How do we walk that, that razor line of where we need to get paid for our intellectual property, but we want to make these available to everybody. So that is kind of how we devised, I think, a win-win-win for everybody. I'm a big fan of wins, and I think that that's a win-win-win.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, we've been talking about this, like I said, for a year, right? Like I see the value. I basically walk the value, right? Like it's amazing. And I seriously cannot explain how relieving it is to have this type of document in place when you're talking about compliance and IRS and all this other stuff. So Emily's going to drop a link in the chat. We're obviously going to follow up with an email that goes to the landing page, Ashley, for the boot camp, which is the $100 first month, and it also goes to that $3,500 access point for an annual.
Perfect.
But the annual also gets you the documents that we looked at today.
That's right.
So I mean, I think it's incredibly generous, and this whole thing, man, it's like, I mean, I look around this industry all day and it's like, where is this? Like, how do we actually move the needle from an impact standpoint, which is obviously the true promise of this incentive. And if we're not able to provide this type of material at an accessible point, pricing and time-wise, then how do we expect to fulfill the promise of this, this incentive at all? So I thank you for that. I mean, it's been a mission of both of ours. I think that's why we aligned in the first place, really. And John and Brett represent that as well. I mean, coming from a true state of abundance. I think Patrick Shagru is here in the audience. Like, I just want to give a shout out to everybody, even the bootcamp members here. Like, they're here, they're participating. Like, you represent movement in this industry that backs the real reason why it can be impactful, right? And that's my soapbox.
All right, let's get into some of the bootcamp questions. I'm going to finalize this one in the chat for Alan Wade as well. So that's the thing that we're crucial on. We got to do the sales thing because we got to, get the information out to everybody. But I'm not about the sales type deal. I'm about delivering value, and hopefully that this has been valuable for everybody that's participated. And I think that everybody in bootcamp thinks that they get value for every week that they participate, and they bring value too. So it's really
Why don't-
cool.
Why don't we spin this wheel and then we can hang for another 15 minutes? Do you want to do that and answer
so
questions?
while you're spinning that wheel, I'm going to answer Alan's that it's going to be your cost basis, not what your financial statements. It's not fair market value. It's going to be your unadjusted cost basis as the alternative valuation method, and spin that wheel.
So the rules here are you have to be here to win. So Emily, I think you got everybody's names that registered. I don't know if you've taken people out that aren't here. I think most everybody's here, but do you want to pull up your screen and do this thing?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Well, so am I.
Well, I'll simmer down,
Remember-
Chris.
Well, yeah, I know. Very excited. So remember we did this in Puerto Rico. Everybody did drum roll, but all right. So
I'll do
go
this, but when I'm done, I would really love for Ashley to share what Bootcamp is. Like, yes, you get the documents and stuff, but I want to know what Bootcamp is. So here we go.
oh my gosh, it's all choppy. I can't
It's
tell
okay.
if it's slowing down or not.
John Davis.
JD.
Yeah, all right.
Fantastic. All right.
We'll follow up with you, John. Congrats, man.
And let me also point this out, right? That if for whatever reason you don't have, and I don't know where John is. I don't know if he's got a deal or if he's got something that needs to be done. If you wanted to contribute it back in or whatever, I'd be happy to redo it. So, anyhow, we should have put that on the front end. But John, looking forward to working with you on this and knocking it out for you on your deal. So why don't we, so I'll explain what Bootcamp is. So Bootcamp is effectively a weekly call from 10 to 11:30 Eastern time on Tuesdays. And you join through OzWorks group, and Bootcamp is a special membership group inside of OzWorks group. That's why you have to join through OzWorks group. And that's where you can get recordings of the videos. You can post questions. You can chat with the other members. And it just provides a great, convenient place where we can channel all of the information. But effectively, it's an hour and a half of kind of rapid fire Q&A, discussion, updates, and just generally staying on top of opportunity zone type stuff that happens every Tuesday.
Boom. We've got 15 minutes. I think John put a link, Bootcamp, but I don't know, Emily, does the link that you sent, is that the same one? I don't know, John, if you even need to put in the $100 code. I think you can just go access that.
Yeah, this one that I have here has both the offers.
Yeah, sweet. And the deal is that annual membership, that 3,500, if you sign up for that, then you get the and that's just for current Bootcamp members and people who are on this call, right, Ashley? I mean,
that's right. That's right. That's not a promo that we're launching out there for the general public right now. That's because you guys invested into this.
Absolutely. And we'll give everybody a week and we'll follow up with some emails just as like quick reminders if that's something that you want to do. You can also just straight email us if or send a direct message before this thing ends today.
Hey guys, thanks for everything. I've got to run, but really enjoyed being a part of this, and I left my contact info, so anyone wants to reach out, I'm available anytime, and look forward to seeing you on the upcoming boot camps too.
Awesome. Thanks, you, Brett.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Man.
Brett. See ya.
Bye now.
Hey, Brett.
So let's turn it over to the Bootcamp folks, right? We can kind of do a little behind the scenes, can open up the kimono, if you will, relative to what Bootcamp really looks like. And
hey, Ashley.
Yeah.
Can I cut you off? Elena has a great question in the
Perfect.
chat that we might want to address first.
If you want us to do it and you want us to set everything up, it's $6,000 for our done for you package. And then that includes a month of Bootcamp. And so, there's a couple of different ways of interacting with us. And then if you don't want to participate in Bootcamp, you don't want to do the annual, you don't really care about the documents or whatever, and you want to specifically talk to me or somebody on the team, then we've got strategy calls on the website, and you can go to OZPros.com and you can book a strategy call. If it's with me, it's a consulting call. So just keep that in mind. Thanks for teeing that up. All right, let's put it out there to the bootcamp folks.
I
What's
think
everybody?
Matt, do you have a question? I think you've been waiting for a while, man.
Yeah, I mean, it pretty much got answered. So thank you. You basically answered it all. The only thing I'm still wondering is that verification column. You got support verification. You might have said it, but what's the verification? How do I make sure I got the verification?
So that's just it, right? That's the beauty about this program, is that you don't have to get verification from any kind of outside third party, or the IRS or any kind of, CDFI or anything like that. But you have to have some kind of audit trail to prove the stance that you're taking. And so that verification item is just a place for you to reference how you're verifying that. And then ideally what you would do is you would link to it in that, or you've got it inside of your audit trail folder.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And if I could just, one last thing is just to clarify, since I opened my QOF on March 15th of this year, my first asset test would be September 15th, which is next week. I skipped the June 30th one. So,
Yeah.
so I'm going to build these.
So that's actually really good. I'm glad that you're bringing that up. So because you opened up in March, you funded in March.
Yep.
Right. So that's what you're going to designate on your 8996 that you're going to file next year with your 2022 taxes, is that your first 6-month test would be in September, right? Because it's 6 months from the date that you designated that you wanted to start. So because it's March, that's going to push you to September. And so you get to disregard for that first test. And so your first real asset test happens December 31st of this year.
So this September one is just
well, as long as it's still held in cash or cash equivalent, you get to disregard. So you've already put it into opportunity.
And
you put it into your QOZB.
Yeah, QOZB and bought land.
So then that you're going to just put that inside of your 8996 for your asset test.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
And the cool thing is that if you have a plan to improve the property, right, that you are buying and it's in an opportunity zone, and you've got a working capital safe harbor plan to cover your cash, you get to count that as good property for purposes of that. Like when you're filling out the property value, the owned property value there. And so, you had $1 million in your QOF, you drop 950,000 down to your QOZB. Inside your 8996, you're putting 950,000 as your your qualified opportunity zone asset. And then you're putting $1 million as your total assets. And so you're at 95%.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. This was awesome. I was filling out my stuff as you were talking, so appreciate it.
Sweet.
Love it. That's what it's for, man. I think, there's a question Howard asks, can you walk through how asset test happens in year 2? It's like same as it happens in the other years, right?
Yep. Yeah. And it's, so you're going to do an asset test every 6 months as of June 30 and December 31st every year. And so, I mean, for real estate deals, it's actually fairly easy, because as soon as you get your substantial improvement done and you can document that, then your asset test is going to be easy from there on out, because it's going to qualify. So like, all right, we got our substantial improvement done. This is the value and it's your cost basis. So it's not going to change. And you're going to just continue to fill that in on your 8996.
And the spreadsheets are great to have too, because if something does change, you can enter it in and it like pre-populates everything.
Now, I'm throwing this out as a caveat, right? Anybody that owns non-qualifying property, so anything that's outside of a zone, or they are trying to do something cute with inside of the zone from pre-2017 property, that bad asset is going to be a net present value, right? It's going to be the fair market value at the time of the asset test. And so if you've got one of those, you got to have some method for showing what that value was for purposes of doing your 70-30 test. And so that's one of the reasons why I highly caution people to be really careful about doing stuff outside of the zone, inside of their qualified opportunity zone business.
There's a follow-up to that. Howard had another one. Loan of less than 18 months was made of cash at QOF asset. Does that cover the asset test?
Nope. That's still going to be considered cash, right? And so that's why at the QOF level, if you loan it out from the QOF, you need to make sure that you bring it back in and that you make the maturity date for that loan prior to your test. So let's just run this through again for timing standpoint, because it's real easy to use examples. I think it's a lot easier when you have examples. we're going to use Matt's example as example 1, and then we're going to use an example number 2 for mine. Okay. So Matt funded his fund in March. Okay. And so he put $1 million into his fund. He doesn't have a deal yet. And he's like, holy crap, I don't want that $1 million sitting in a bank account, basically losing money because of inflation. So I'm going to loan it back to myself, and I'm going to put it into, I don't know, I bonds, right? You probably wouldn't do I bonds because it's a longer hold, but I'm going to put it into something that's going to earn more money. The due date on that loan needs to be like December 15th, because he needs to get his money back into the fund and then get it deployed prior to December 31st, because that's his testing date. So on my deal, right? So I just put $31,000 into my qualified opportunity fund. I'm going to let it sit there for 5 days. Then I'm going to loan it back out to myself, because I'm going to put it to work somewhere else where I'm making interest on it. I'm actually going to put it to work with QOZB Capital, and they pay a 6% zero coupon bond on it. And so I'm loaning that out, but I have till June 30th to put that money into the QOZB. So I'm going to make sure that I get that money back by June 15th of next year, so that I can run it back into the QOF and then drop it down to my QOZB. Because if it's under an 18-month loan, it's still considered cash. And so a cash equivalent. And so it counts towards, it's still sitting in your QOF. It's really important that you don't have a bunch of money sitting in your QOF for any significant period of time. So that's hopefully that answers that relative to the time.
I want to say, man, we can keep tabs on all this. We answered 20 questions just in the chat box alone. There were 20 that I had that people submitted ahead of time. So we've hit 40 questions in this session today. Like, I'm feeling pretty good about the efficiency here.
Man, it's rapid fire. I'm going to have to go take a nap afterwards.
I know, I know.
It's all good. So what's funny is that I love this. It's
energizing.
And I do this every week, right? I do it every Tuesday, and I actually look forward to Tuesday because I get to interact with everybody.
Well, when we do this
off of it,
as part of the boot camp, right? Everybody gets into OZWorks group as well. And Emily runs a session every Friday. That's a straight networking, and like, that's energizing, where we do the breakout rooms and connect people. So I get pumped about it too. And John Vashon's dopamine hits, right? I answered a question. I just want to confirm that, in the grand scheme of QOZB, you don't have to file anything. You just got to be in compliance. You got to maintain the audit trails. Like, it's an opt-in.
File anything with the IRS or anything else.
In fact, there was a great podcast I just listened to that Jimmy did about, people who are in like, the CPAs are actually improperly in like over diligence filing forms with the QOZB
8996s, and then it's like, oh crap, how do we undo
double
that?
fund, right? So then there's a question about buying land before 2017. That time does disqualify the property, right, for QOZB.
It will not be good property, but
right.
There's a couple of ways that we can deal with that. And I'm working on a third-party ground leasing company that can effectively step in and solve that problem for everybody.
Yeah.
So if anybody knows of a third-party ground leasing company that does ground lease construction financing, I would love to talk with them.
Are there any bootcamp members? We've got like 4 minutes left. I just want to say thank you to everyone for participating in this. Like, it is a straight brand new thing that we're doing, and I personally am really stoked about this. If you have feedback, we would love it. It's hard to tell, like, if this is, valuable for everyone. I think we like just the sheer volume of questions that we've answered, I think would make it valuable. Appreciate the compliance needs results. I don't know, Emily, if you can share that. I see that it's closed down.
Carol's got to drop the question in the chat. She asked about OZPros, like capital deployment thing. It's not OZPros. It's actually an entity called QOZB Capital, and they're out of Austin, and they've effectively they've figured out, and they've got a very safe method for generating. They provide liquidity for crypto pools, and so they take offsetting positions. which makes it so that they limit the risk, the upside and the downside risk of crypto fluctuations. And then they just make money off of the transfer between. And so there's a stable coin that gets issued for doing that. And so they're providing the funding for that stable coin. And then they provide a 6% coupon. So the money's sitting in an FDIC insured account, and you make 6% on a 0 coupon bond. So it means if you put in $1 million, when you get the money back in 6 months, you get $1,060,000. So that's the details on it. If anybody wants to talk to the QOZB Capital guys, we'd be more than happy to make an introduction to Griffin Goss. He's been in a bunch of the Ozworks group stuff.
Yep.
And we can make that intro.
Yeah, and Jack just put in the chat that in future sessions, he wants to understand sort of evidence required to move existing businesses into
Heck
OZs.
yeah, let's definitely hit it. So
You
Jack,
know,
join the boot camp, man, and we'll absolutely hit that.
yeah.
The other thing,
in particular to your needs, Jack, like you can come in and be like, this is what I have, this is what I want to do. What's the solution, right? Go ahead, Ashley. I didn't mean to cut you off.
So, well, real fast. I mean, we can kind of run through it, right? You know, the key thing is that you need to look at whether they're in the zone or whether they're outside of the zone. If they're outside of the zone, it's actually going to be really easy because everything that you buy asset wise and everything like that's going to qualify as a new asset for purposes of your 70-30 test. And so that just kind of becomes a function of, all right, can I hit the 50% gross income test by moving the employees into the zone? Can I move the assets into the zone? And then how much are they going out of the zone, and how do we come up with the documentation associated with that? And we do that on the boot camp. We do that all the time on strategy calls for folks as well. I tell the story about my friend that's got a pool company and how they solve that problem of bringing the assets back. And so we cover ideas and just kind of generally bounce around stuff like that in the boot camp. Now, here's the other thing. And one of the things that I've kind of put out there, and I'd love feedback from everybody on this too, is that as boot camp grows, there's going to get to a point where it's we're going to have to start another one. And so inside of starting another one, it'll be at a different time on a different day. So that'll be the first thing. So that way other people could participate. And what we might do is shift it to where we're covering more topics in one. And we're, you know, so that way if people are drawn to specific topics, we can have them be concentrated that way. But that's in the works, not done yet, but would love feedback relative to any thoughts that anybody has on that too.
And the next boot camp is next Tuesday. It's every Tuesday, 10 to 11:30 a.m. I'll be there because I actually have some questions, Ashley, minor stuff, but it's awesome. So we did it. We wrapped it up. I do feel like 2 hours really flew by. John, congrats on winning the spinning wheel. We'll see. We'll follow up with you and let you know how to get access to that session. And yeah, I mean, any kind of parting words, like I said, if anyone has feedback, please let us know. I think the next version of this, we talked about Ashley doing a working capital safe harbor straight version, working through that. Yep. And yeah, it's just, we've covered so much. So I really, really appreciate you, Ashley, carving out the time to do this and everything that you're doing for the industry, man.
Yeah. And what we can also do, and we probably should have done this time or done it like back in like August, was just actually gone through the tax forms, right? We kind of hit that today, but it probably wouldn't be a bad idea for us to just do that on a regular kind of cycling basis for people to just make sure that they're dialed in on those tax forms and the filing deadlines and that kind of thing. So Once again, open for suggestions, but I'm stoked about doing the working capital safe harbor thing because I invariably end up learning stuff that I apply to my own endeavors.
Sweet. Well, we'll keep everybody posted about that upcoming workshop, and we'll definitely send out some emails, hopefully to see you all in boot camp next week. And yeah, the recording will also be posted in there. So when you get into the boot camp, you'll have access to all that as well. Thanks, everybody. See you all soon. John, appreciate you being here, answering some questions. All the boot camp members, Danny, good to see you. Jared, John, Rod, Catherine.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. Really appreciate you guys coming out today. Hopefully this was of value to everybody. I was true to my word. I didn't call on anybody. I thought for sure somebody was going to be, heckling or jumping in from the boot camp crew.
We packed so much in, we didn't give them time in between to breathe about it.
It was fairly rapid fire.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks everyone. We'll catch you soon, and be well.
All right. Thank you
All right.
guys.
Take care.
Have a
Appreciate it,
great
y'all.
weekend.
See ya.
Bye everyone.